Oh, hello.
Hello,
Hello, Shiloh. How are you doing? Welcome.
thank you.
Welcome to Grandma's March. And today is the second day of this amazing event. We started yesterday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It was almost 4 hours of this opening session that was just amazing. We had something also in the afternoon, and then this morning we had other two amazing women. But now it's like, I was like counting the days and the minutes to be here with you today because really is a pleasure. And I'm really excited for us to have this, I'm calling it a wisdom talk, share a little bit about your amazing story. And before we go there, I want to introduce this beautiful, amazing woman, Shiloh Sophia. And I found her. I think I'm a hidden artist since I was a kid. And I love art. I'm an art therapist, but I don't practice. I work in the corporate world, and my grandmas and my mom, they paint, they are artists. So one day I saw one of your beautiful sessions that you offer, and I said, my God, I want to participate. And I started following you, participating in these amazing sessions with the MUSE and intentional creativity, all these amazing things that you're going to share with us today. But yes, so that's the way I got here today with you. And I say she has to be part of this. I'm curious. I want to know her, and everybody out there needs to know who you are. So Shiloh, what I know and what she shared with me is like she's an artist, she's a poet, she's a teacher. She's an author of 7 books that she has published out there. She's the founder and the leader of Intentional Creativity Movement and Concept that I understand. And she has been serving women for more than over 25 years. She's also the co-founder of MUSE centers, and they are all around the world. And one thing that she shared with us that I love it is she lives life as a great adventure narrated by the creative fire of her muse. I love it. I really want to know more about that. So yeah, I don't want to talk more. I want to give you the space to share with us, Shiloh, a little bit about your story and your personal story. How did your ancestors or grandmothers or feminine wisdom inspire all this sacred work, and how has been this journey? Just share with us a little bit.
Thank you so much, Monica, and all of you who are joining us live for this real celebration of our grandmothers and ancestors on International Women's Day. I always love to have the whole day be a kind of a ceremony, a celebration of awareness that on this one day, everywhere in the world, we're all putting our energy toward awareness regarding women. And that definitely started from really strong women in my own family. I'm so grateful to have been blessed by my 2 grandmas, Helen and Eden. I'm wearing Helen's shawl right now. I wanted to wear it to be with you. And just what remarkable women they were in terms of the way that they imparted their wisdom to me and also taught their children. And so I feel like in terms of what's relevant for our time here together today, what I'd love to focus on in terms of my story, because there's so many nuances, is how information is passed from woman to woman in a lineage. And whether or not our grandmothers or those who came before them, their grandmothers, was intentional or not about what they carried forward, how important was the recipe, the weaving pattern, the stitching into the carpet, the stories, the patterns. We'll always tell this story. I feel like over time we have lost that super intentional sense of passing on in many cultures, not all, but many. And then also the kids are less interested in like, I'm going to sit around and listen to my grandmother. Well, thankfully, I did sit around and listening to my grandmothers, and they both passed on incredible wisdom and presence. And my mom was an entrepreneur. So my mom worked a lot. Her name was Karen. And so I got to spend time with my grandmothers that was unscheduled time. and they treated me so beautifully. So I think of it as a time of absolute healing and a little bit of babying. And they were both badasses in their own lives and both storytellers, and one was a healer and the other one was like the ultimate giving heart, which is its own form of healing. And the time that I spent with them helped me become. You know, when you have a busy mom, it's like the grandmother's is like the slow down time, you know. And I remember going to my grandmother Eden's house. Yeah. And she would like I would get there like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I would know I'd get her the whole night, and she'd shop for me and make this special chicken for me. And she'd set my hair in rollers, and I would wear her soft nightgowns that she handmade. And she'd put me under a blanket that she made, and we would listen to Elvis and play Yahtzee, you know? So it was like that time was such a gift, right? And then also her being an herbalist. Like I remember one story where I had poison oak, and I was 13. I wanted to go to the dance so bad, and poison oak goes over my whole body. And she had already made me an outfit, handmade me an outfit. And I went to Grandma Eden, and I was like, I got to go to the dance. What can you do for me? And she was like, I'll try. So she went out in the yard and she picked all the stuff, and she put this huge pot of water and all these herbs in it. And then she took this fabric and she stirred the fabric around, and she wrapped me up like a mummy and was like, stay there for 3 hours. And so I literally was like, okay, so then the whole poison oak went away, and she's like, but it's only going to last until almost midnight, so you have to come home.
Cinderella.
I know, totally. Anyway, sure enough, I go to the party, and then like 11 o'clock or something, I start itching, and I'm like, I gotta go. So I always remember stories like that of the way that grandmas would make the miracles. So really good stories of how they inform me and the women in my family.
Oh my God, that is so amazing. I love when I hear these stories, and I think this is why I'm so passionate about doing this, because I've been collecting stories like 2 years already, and I do interviews to women, and now I'm trying to do with men and understanding those memories. And that is the most amazing thing. And I see a lot of sensorial things around those memories. You remember specific or symbols that you remember, and that moment of the outfit or something that she was cooking to you, the chicken, the special one. Oh my God, that's what you said, the passing and the time, two things that I've been seeing, that we're losing that. We are really losing that. We don't have time anymore to do that. We don't value anymore. All the kids are all the time connected to internet, to video games and things like that. And people is rushing all over and working, and yeah, we have to slow down and enjoy time like grandmas taught us, and they really know how to do that. So I love that. And tell me, how do you think they inspire, and maybe it's the time now to share a little bit, how did you get into your sacred work and the intentional creativity, and how do you think they inspire you in all this? And I kind of start feeling how it did, because it's very clear.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, well, and the idea of passing on the gift, both of them were creative and very original for their time. I think otherwise they wouldn't have had the parents that ended up becoming my parents, right? And women who had access to information that was different, independent thinkers, and again, storytellers. And I'm thinking in particular right now of my grandmother Eden, who, she could build a house, she could plumb a house, she could sew, she was a pattern maker, an illustrator, an herbalist. She made all her clothes, she made our clothes, she made blankets. Her and my mom were in the fashion design business together. Like, there was nothing she couldn't do. And if you ask my mom, what about grandma do you remember? My mom would say, no matter what I said that I thought I could or couldn't do, grandma would say, bring it here, let me see it, let me take a look at that. The grandma never said that can't happen, And so there's this way that my grandmother passed these amazing skills. So my mom became a writer, a seamstress, a carpenter, like all these amazing skills of independence. And my mom passed those to me. So I grew up with my mother and my grandmother making dresses. My mom designed dresses and my grandma was the pattern maker, and they worked all the time. And so I would sleep under the cutting table. So I have, the sound of the steam of the iron and the cloth on the table, and my grandmother's hands smoothing the fabric, and my mother, packing boxes and ringing the calculator. And like, I wouldn't want to be away from them. So I would sleep down in the production room. I didn't end up becoming a seamstress, but they did impart to me a love of color and a love of texture. And then also they employed women. So, at one time there was up to 100 women who ended up working for my, because they got a big deal for dresses. So they finally got a break, so to speak. And so they employed women in a factory in San Francisco, California. But also we would find people in trouble, women, and we would bring them home. And sometimes they would stay with us and they would work. And so my mom and my grandma taught these women. And it was a time where there wasn't as much fear now of like, well, what happens if you bring someone and their kids into
true.
Are they ever going to leave? Or, how do they have a job? Like, I feel like they were less cautious in a way. And other members of my family did that same thing. My other mother, Sue, and my Aunt Janet, they also brought people into their home and gave them work. And so I feel like, part of the work I'm doing now is a passing on of work and a kind of a work ethic. Like we were laborers. We were taught to labor. We were taught to love work, and we weren't allowed to be bored. And they were fierce about it. So the passing on of the gift is the passing on of, specific ways of being, but also a way of working. And my work is focused on something we call intentional creativity, which is simply an approach to creating anything that you make. That could be, the soup, that's, how you make the bed, how you greet your husband in the morning, it's a way of being, but it's also how you make things with love. Like my grandmother made me a blanket. And she hated pink. Her blue was her color. She hated pink. But she's like, I knew I had to make a pink blanket for you. And I love you so much. So I would have to look away. Well, I made it. But I put love into it anyway. And so it's so funny because I still have this blanket, all these 40 years later. And when I see it, I think of that story, which is so endearing, and how she said she put the love into it, even though she didn't like pink, and when I feel that, I feel that was Grammy Eden. I feel her love in that blanket. Or like, this is my grandmother Helen's shawl, and my uncle Jeff got it for her from Mexico. And it's not like I get it dirty, but I don't ever wash it. I feel like her skin is somehow inside of the shawl, and so when I put it on, I think of her. And before this grandma would call me, my mother said I would smell her perfume, and I would say, Grandma's going to call me. And then she would call. And so I feel like when I put this on, it's like, Grandma's going to call, and I had a dream one time where I was calling this Grandma Helen. I was yelling. And she's like, you don't need to yell. I'm right here. And she put her head around the door and then disappeared. And I was like, oh, I don't know how it all works, but I definitely have a sense of them passing the gift on to me, and then how it went to my mother and to my father and to my other mother, Sue, and then how they passed the gifts on to me. So they passed the gifts on to me, I would say, of working, of a love of work. I mean, that's really what it comes from. And then from there, really translating that into the different arts, whether that's wood or craft or paint or poetry, and doing that thing that you do with all the love in the world. Now, that is normal in Indigenous cultures. That is how all of our ancestors were, probably just, who knows, in some families and cultures it could be 500 years back. Some it's just a few years back. But by the time it got to me, I felt the absolute significance of what it meant to create with intention. And how when I made things with intention, it changed what I was making at a level of the particle. It changed. If I whisper into this thread, which is in itself a thing, if I pray into this thread, there's no way the thread isn't taking on the charge. of what I'm praying. It
Yes,
can't not. That's science. And that's love and science, right? And so I feel like they imparted to me how to be with creating and how to treat things and beings and places. And then it was such a revelation for me how much it changed, and then I changed from witnessing it, that I have made my whole life dedicated to teaching about it. Seems like such a small thing, do what you do with love, but when you start doing it, it changes everything, because you no longer want to be cavalier and sloppy with your offerings. Everything starts to matter. And I feel like industrialization and progress and greed, and like in every country in the world and every culture and every community in the world, when they stopped making with love, that's the moment where things start to go wrong, and where there's that conquest and settler behavior, which is like to take more than what is ours, which Indigenous people didn't do that, you know? So it's a return to a kind of sanity that all of our ancestors knew about at one point, however far back that is.
Wow, it is true. And you were already answering like my new question, and is how that grandmother wisdom and that feminine wisdom can help to create the new and the new world that we need. And that is the answer, you know. It's so simple. And you said it seems so simple what I created and the intentional, but is that intention, is that love, is the connection to that. And that is amazing how you put something so simple into something so, you know, beautiful, that is making so good to everybody. And it's because of the intention that has. And
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. The way I created this, I've been just working. This is my passion, you know, this is my hobby, what I'm doing here. And I thought, oh my God, first time in my life, I'm going to do this event. And I don't know who's going to show up. I'm not charging. I have nothing to offer. I think so. But I put the intention, you know, and I put the love, and I know the right women are going to show up, and they are showing up, and you're here, and I'm doing it, and I'm spreading this work. So, I love it. I love it, because I thought intentional creativity was more like, it's a method, and I did it with you, like, painting. But I can see that it's much more than that. It's just like every single thing that you do every day, you can put that intention in, you can bring that creativity, and it's gonna be like, I know, you know what happened today? I'm gonna share with you. I draw a card from this oracle that I like. One of them is called Nature's Whispers, and I say, well, I want a message from my grandmothers, and the message I got today is be spontaneous. And it's like, when I read it, it says like that, you know, like try to make life like something playful and joy. And I always have it with me there, like this during this day. It's like from now on, I'm gonna have it there, because that's all about that. I just love it, how that energy is always coming and remembering us what we need.
Yeah, it does. And it's like it's reshaping our brain and our heart. When you make with intention, you start to rewire your synapses, the little places that fire. And when we have trauma, those little places get interrupted and scarred and hard. And so sometimes making with love, if you haven't had a lot of love, I mean, I have had a lot of love. I mean, that is the huge, amazing miracle of my life. We did not have an easy life. We did not have resources. It was tough. It was dangerous. Mom married many times. We moved more than once a year. Like it, you know, it was wild. That's the great adventure part. But I had the love. And so I'm like a testimony that you could have all of these really bizarre experiences growing up. But if you aren't treated like you're worthless, you will be able to gain a perspective. And so my mom, if we would be like in a dangerous or a hard situation, she would say, well, how are you choosing to relate to this? Or say we're like fleeing a husband in the middle of the night, and it's pretty dramatic, you know, to get your kid up in the middle of the night and get in the car. I mean, that happened a lot. And she'd be like, well, where do you want to go? Let's weigh the pros and cons. Like, she was so amazing at taking the hard situation and inviting me to have a say or a perspective. And I'd always be like, well, wherever we go, there better be a swimming pool. She's like, okay, check, swimming pool. And we go to a hotel, which often has swimming pools. Oh, there's got to be popcorn or, so she would redirect my trauma response to choice. And she figured out that when that happened for me, the trauma, I moderated it myself. So I wasn't just taking all my cues from her. I was taking them from how did I feel? What did I want? And eventually I'd go to sleep and then wake up somewhere else. And it would go on like that for some time. It's hard to think back at it and just be like, whoa, I can't believe I turned out okay. But I turned out okay because there was love, because I was treated well by my elders. And they never treated me as if something was wrong with me, as if I should be doing better. Like, in fact, nobody ever thought, I would go to college. No one asked me what I was going to be when I grew up. So there's also that piece. There was very little motivation besides making art. But at the same time, it was like, if you can have that much love, even with that much challenge, it's such a sign what love can do, and especially for the child to be engaged in a choice or how they're relating. So I feel like with intentional creativity as an approach, not just to creating, but life, because every day is creative, it changes us, our wiring, how we respond in a really different way. And then I do feel like everything, it does the whole world change to meet that perspective. I'm not talking about it like magical thinking, but what I end up seeing when I'm looking through another framework, I see something different. So if I put on these glasses,
I love it.
then I'm going to see something really different because I'm choosing the glasses
from a different perspective. I love that.
Or if I put these ones on, then I get a different perspective.
It is true. Yeah.
Depending on which ones you use, you're going to get a different perspective. So choosing perspectives and choosing to treat yourself as a creative being. I think that's a thing where I didn't show a lot of promise in any of the arts, even though they shared them with me. I wasn't great at anything. I wanted to sing, I wanted to paint, I wanted to draw, I wanted to dance, I wanted to do everything, and I wasn't good at anything. And so it was like, but they didn't discourage me. I just did it anyway. And eventually it ended up coming clear to me that this approach to creating could really change how we relate to ourselves and our creativity. So that's why we call it intentional creativity.
Oh my God. And that is so needed. I work in the corporate world and with leaders in a very masculine environment. And I every time I'm more connected to this, I realize how our system is so disconnected from that playful, innocent, the child, the inner child that we all have inside. And I think it's the grandmas that help us remind all that, as you were saying. And I love, because yesterday in one of the sessions we were having, the only man that was participating, he was talking about the importance of the grandmother and the importance of his mother and the love and the innocence, especially how we lost that. And at the end, we were another woman was sharing about how she's doing the role of the grandmother with these children that are coming to living into her house. She doesn't have children, but she's going to start hiding little toys and piggies behind mirrors and things like that to create this magic world to the children that are coming into her house. Mm-hmm. So, and then it's like, yeah, we all need that. We all need to remember how to play. And I love how you're just having your glasses there, putting them, because that's all about. It's having different perspectives, and just like a child, just wearing different glasses and different costumes, and it's amazing. And I'm just so curious. This is not even in the script, but I really want to ask you about your beautiful hats, because I always see you wearing different hats. Is there something? Is there a story behind that? Because I love them.
Besides bad hair days. Oh, it's just a part of, my mom was a fashion designer, so I got to dress really playfully. And so from the beginning, I just dressed wacky. That's what I want, how I wanted. And so to me, the hat brings in a festiveness.
Yes.
So it's about play and about being festive And it also is sort of like I don't wear it necessarily on a day off with my husband, but like when I put it on, it's like I'm at work. You know, this is my artist hat. And I get, maybe 2 or 3 new ones a year and phase out the old ones and give them away. And so it's like, this is one of my hats for this year. So I love to play and eat. I even wear, I put on my cowgirl boots even, for Zoom calls, even though you can't see them. And then I wear perfume and my lipstick, I'm a girl. I want to be playful and bring in the beauty. And so I think that's the other thing is about beauty.
Yes.
About really curating beauty where you are and how nurturing that is. A lot of intentional creativity has to do with changing your environment, how you relate to your body, how you relate even to your bedding and your plants at your house. Like there's so many simple things that we don't do for ourselves. Like people, if they come to our house or our art studio, they'll be like, do you actually live this way? Like, do you float, roses and bowls of water and light candles and spread out the colored blankets? It's like, yeah, I mean, we do this every day, just me and Jonathan. We're making beauty. And so it's a lot of our work is about inviting people to beauty and the simple luxuries, the simple luxuries were like, even just something like sheets for girls, right? Like we say, well, I don't want to spend money on bedding, but it's like at Home Goods or Target or something, you can get nice sheets for like $20 or $30, and we'll spend that on a dinner, but we won't spend that on sheets or a shawl or like a playful hat or pens and, have a jar of pens available. Like
I know.
Right. So it's like a reprioritization of playfulness for the muse, and it ends up creating a different relationship with your creativity. And we're in a weird cycle of self-deprivation.
Yes.
In things that we could be tending ourselves in ways that then light us up. So for me, that's pens and hats and,
yeah,
candles.
All this play. I love it.
Being playful, creating magical environments for my husband and myself. And, this year, of course, not many others, but we also have a classroom space in Sonoma that we set up. So when people walk in, they're like, oh, I'm in a new place. I'm in a magical place. So there's all of that. And in terms of the question you were asked before about what do we need to do now, and why do I feel like this is the most important thing? Is that the right question that you're?
Yes.
I feel like until someone is awake, the choices that they make don't reflect their awakeness. And a lot of us kind of move from childhood to a form of sleeping because we are somehow drawn into lifestyles and jobs and relationships and patterns and schedules that aren't really great for humans. And so we go to sleep a little bit and we don't know what we're missing. We don't know that we're not there. And then we wake up one day and we're like, wow, how did I get here? How did I pick this love or this job? How did I allow myself to work somewhere this long that hurts me? Why have I not been creating? Why am I not being the artist? Or whatever your midlife wake up is. And I feel like in our community, one of the things that we're saying is, let's not wait for a crisis to wake. Let's wake up now. And art does that. That's the amazing thing about art, is that it actually does awaken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I feel like, what do I think we need to create the future? I think the step one is a protocol for waking up. And that's mostly what I teach.
Wow, I love it. And you remind me of something, and it was a text that actually I read it yesterday in the opening session, and it's a text I found somewhere in Facebook, and I discovered it was from a guy in Brazil, but it's translated to English, and it's called "Mom, Can I Sleep at Grandma's Tonight?" And I will share it to you. So it's all about, he starts saying, when did we adults become so boring? And why don't we remember how it was to be at grandma's house, when like you can discover new toys, or there is mystery spots, or there is the smell of the baking, and remember remembering how was that magic and that playful thing. And that's how you are making me feel like, yeah. Yesterday we were trying to know, let's play like we are in grandma's house, and that's the idea, and that's the energy, and that's the magic that you bring into this world. That feeling of I can imagine being at your house. It's like, because my grandma's house was like that. Oh my God, it was full of surprises, full of flowers, full of roses, smells.
Yes.
Everything had a story, full of art. She was always painting, sewing, and so there was something new to discover. It's like a museum.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing how far we've come from that? And a lot of the grandmas who had that, it wasn't that they had a whole bunch of resources.
No, right.
They made beauty. And then as time went on, we've got more and more and more austere and more beige. I call it the attack of the beige people. Where all of a sudden,
boring.
wearing beige and like, let's pick which color of gray.
Beige, gray.
You know, and it's like, I don't know anyone who has houses like my grandmother had. You know, no, you know, my grandmother's house was everything, Grandma Eden, everything was blue flowers, blue, everything matched because she could sew. And she changed her name to Eden McLeod in her late 60s. That's how rebellious she was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she didn't like her name, and she didn't want to carry on her father's name, so she changed it to Eden.
Wow, what a powerful woman. Yeah.
She was indeed.
Oh my God, that is so amazing. So how do you think, and that's another, we're trying to create awareness to the grandmas of today or women of today, because we can all play that role of a grandmother to others, you know, even if we don't have children or we don't have grandchildren, or even if we're in the corporate world. But how can the grandmas of today, or how can we human beings play that role today? How do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a great question. And one of the things that we work with in our community is to ensure that people have art supplies at their home.
Mm-hmm.
And so that instead of like the formal dining room where nobody sits, or the guest room where nobody sleeps, or whatever it is, like, how do you make art spaces? So if I was going to make one solid recommendation about being mentoring or grandmothering or remothering in today, it would be to create art spaces and to have art supplies out, paper on the table, pens on the table. And there's something about not putting it away. So sometimes, like, we get the art materials out and then we put them away. You can't put them away. You got to have everything out. And so as soon as the littles or whoever's coming over, like, just sit down and make some tea, put on some salsa, and just like start drawing, moving the pen. And, you know, most people, if you got music playing and you're drinking tea and you start drawing, they're just going to start drawing.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be like, hey, let's have an art session. You know, and so bringing creativity, and you'll find that the littles also start talking a lot more at all ages when they're distracted by art. And I think one of the challenges is the tech piece, because in the little kids that are in my life, like, I don't have children, so I'm not skilled at negotiating away from screen time, and I don't really want to either. So I'm like, I don't know what to say about that, except my table has pens and paper on it, and this is what I'm doing. And if you do a cool picture, we can take a picture with your phone and share it with your friends. But other than that, we're gonna make art. You know, you can do it or not. So I feel like art supplies, and I also feel like I just want to be an advocate for good art supplies. I think that oftentimes we buy cheap stuff for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Like, rather have fewer things and have like 5 good pens than 100 pens that are going to dry out. Kids are extremely frustrated by poor materials. And so having good paper and having good pens and having good paints makes a big difference. And it has, like, if you have a pen that glides, you're going to find a different line quality than if it doesn't. And so I think there's something huge about materials. And my family actually really prioritize good materials, which was really nice. So materials, I also think age appropriate materials. So when your child is going from crayon to pen phase, right? So we're moving from, we have a box of crayons, now we're gonna go to pens. Pens are more expensive, they do different things. That's like kind of a ceremony. Like, here's the crayons, and now we're moving to pens. Okay, great, you're this age, now we're moving to paint, or now we're moving to acrylic. So to have phases of materials,
Mm-hmm.
from an art perspective, and to name it, now we're moving to this, and to treat it like a big deal, or to have the trip to the art store. So making ceremony out of art. Yeah, art. And kids, they just generally love to be self-expressed. And if we can create that time for them, they will remember and they will want to have that. So.
Oh, I love that. And I imagine we can do that with adults as well in some way, you know, like, yeah, if they come to your house and you have those pens, for sure, people are going to start also doing things because, yeah, more than kids, I think adults are the ones that are becoming boring and they don't get in touch with these things. And, oh, I love it because I have 2 nephews. I don't have kids, but I have 2 nephews and I always do that, you know, bring painting or doing something like no more video games or no more than that. So I love what you're saying because, yeah, we all can do this so much magic with just so much simple stuff, you know, some pens, some crayons, and have fun with the kids. I love it. So yeah, going back to the feminine wisdom, how do you think those grandmas of today, of the wise women of today, how can we give them a voice? How can we, help them to get out there and share and pass their things and their traditions and the wisdom that they have?
Yeah, I feel like each one of us needs to do that within our own relationships. You know, I also feel like you can't pick too many people. You know, so if each one of us picked like 3 mothers or grandmothers or aunties or elders in our life that were like, you know what, I'm going to focus on this relationship. So I think that the key is cultivating relationship. And those of us who are a little younger, really focusing on those relationships with our elders. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time to do well, but you're so enriched, you know, and at this age, I'm 50, my elders are leaving. And I'm not quite ready to be the elder yet, you know? And so, but I'm just like, okay, just breathing through it and knowing how blessed I feel to have had these elders in my life and to share them with the thousands of women that I work with. And that a lot of them didn't have that. And so for a lot of the women I work with, I'm like the grandma figure. I'm like called the art mommy and stuff like that. People say I'm the Hogwarts art school teacher. So in the Harry Potter movie, you know, I would be the art teacher at Hogwarts. And so I feel like choosing or being chosen. In my case, I have several Native American mamas who chose me. Like, you know, you're going to do this. I'm like, okay. So I feel blessed, and also they challenged me. So most of my elders really put me to task.
Wow.
Yeah. And so how I give them a voice is by giving them my attention. So, and valuing what they share, validating, sharing what they feel is important, and then being able to share their voice with others. So like, it's International Women's Day tonight, you know, after this call, I have a story circle. And in the story circle, I will be reading about one of my mothers, and then I'll be reading a quote. I'll be reading from 4 of my elder mothers tonight as part of International Women's Day. So sharing the voices. And sometimes it's just a few quotes, or sometimes it's a quilt or a recipe, but sharing it how they feel validated. Like recently I was visiting my mom who's in her transition journey, and she was like, you know, I have an idea for a brand. And she's 83 years old. And I was like, okay. And I felt so relieved because I was like, okay, we're going to work on a project. And that's what we did. We worked on a project. She wanted this brand. called Mattering Matters. She wanted me to go by the .com. She's like, this is the most important thing in the world, that everybody knows that they matter. You have to tell them, this is my message. And so we like designed mugs and bags and pillows, and she took part in, like, we looked at 100 fonts, and she picked the font. It was like, and she said to me after a couple of days of working on it, because what a great way to work with someone in transition instead of just all the other stuff that comes with that only, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, you know, I feel like before you came here, I forgot that I mattered. And like now I'm like, oh, maybe I matter. And then our community started writing in, and I made pages and pages. I created a whole book of everything that they wrote to my mother, and then I printed it her so she has it. And it's like, these are the messages of how you mattered by making them matter. And so she felt this validation of this one message, mattering matters. And so that's how I did that with her. So I would say to those of you, if you have elders in your life who've been saying to you, well, I've always wanted to open this kind of business, or I've always wanted to design whatever it is. Because if you talk to them, if you say, was there ever a project that you didn't get to that you wanted to, right? Like, well, what is that? Okay, and even if you don't ever get all the way to the end of it, what if you buy those materials? What if as you're in your journey with them, you're living inside of a project? So I'd say that's the next thing I would say, is to live inside of the context of a project, because it's not just like general chit chat. That doesn't light them up. They're grateful for the visit. Okay, thank you, honey. Like, how do we make this real? You know, and I think you make it real by being together, obviously, and being quiet and doing all that good conversational stuff. But if you work on something, if you work on a project, and you bring up that project, and you support that project, and you finance that project, and you share that project, and you document that project, they will start to feel they're being heard.
Yes, that they matter, like you say.
Yeah, that they matter. So having the elders in your life feel like they matter. And just call them, you know, call your mothers, call the women in your life and say, what do you want to do? What did you never get to? How can we work toward that? What do you want to do about it? And maybe you can't do the thing, but probably nobody's asked them about it for a long time.
I know. Just at least just questions, you know, like ask them about their story. That's the minimum you can do, and bring good memories back, and so they feel loved, and that they are important. I love that. And I think, and this is a call, because some of the things that we're gonna do during this month of March is bring in some of that. Like we have a girl from Israel that she's gonna bake the her grandma's bread, the traditional bread that they eat there. And but now you're giving me, like, this is open, and whoever is listening and whoever is going to listen after, anybody reach out to us if you want a space here to just, like, you know, you're a grandma and cook your recipe or sew or something like that. I'm loving to do that, you know, because this is the way we can also give a voice. You just give me that great idea. And not only for a memory is that, oh yeah, I can cook my grandma's bread, but what about the grandmas out there? Or what about the wise women out there that they want a space? And I would love to do it and play with that. So
it can be funny and fun.
I know.
My husband's a chef, and he was learning about how to make limoncello. We have lemon trees, and so he wanted to make limoncello. And so he watched this show of this Italian grandma, you know, explaining how to make the limoncello, and it's all translated. I love learning about it from grandma, you know. So letting the humor and the joy, the stories, letting them pass something on. And that's why I just feel like, you know, coming back to this idea of projects.
Yes.
Things to gather around and pull forward. Like, you could say to your grandma, okay, I'm going to come over every day that I come over. I'm going to record a story. Then I'm going to have it transcribed, and then I'll bring it back and I'll edit it and read it to you. You can make any changes. Create relationships where you're listening, where you're caring, and you'll get alive too. I think sometimes people feel like it's like a burden to go visit their elder or their grandma, but it's you life. And we just haven't been taught to treat our elders in that way. I think it's coming back. I can't believe it ever went away, but I think it is coming back. But it's the times are so different. You know, whenever I ask my mom, like, well, why this or why that? She's like, honey, the times are so different.
Yes.
You can't judge me or grandma or what we did because we just didn't know. You're facing a lot of different things now. So asking them what was different from when they were and what is the most important thing to them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that is so needed in these times, you know, everybody feels so lonely, and yeah. So I love what you're saying. And I guess before I go to the last question, I know you're doing an offering for our community of a free gift, and is a session. You want to share a little bit more about that, because everybody will love it, and of course we're going to post it.
Yep, I am just looking at my notes right now.
Yeah, sure.
I can't find it, what we said we were going to give.
Yeah, it is a session, and I can share it with everybody. I can find it. So here, sorry that I made a question that I was
all my notes, I don't see it.
But I know I open it is an amazing session that you're offering, so everybody can register.
Right,
and we can publish it right now, right after this, so everybody can have access.
I'm seeing it, so. Well, you can find almost everything we're doing. You can find it at MUSE.org. If you go there, there's all kinds of things, and we'll be able to share that with you.
Perfect. Now we will post it right after this, and everybody will have access to that. But I want to thank you for that free gift for the community, and that's going to be something everybody will enjoy for sure, because it's a free session from that you're offering. But yeah, they will read the details. No worries. That's good.
Thank you.
Sure. And so, yeah, I guess the last message before we go, we have been already almost 15 minutes here, and I know you have something else going on and sharing your amazing story with your community. The message is what do you want to leave as a message for, well, today's International Women's Day. So we pick an amazing date for this wisdom talk. And what message would you like to leave for the women and leaders of the world? I think we lost her. We lost some connection here. Let's try to see if she comes back. Well, we have to always deal with this. Technology, things happen. Maybe she was trying to find the question that I did. I had it here, but I'm not even finding it. So yeah, always we have to deal with this, but I will post it right away. Oh, she's here. You are here. You're back. I was waiting for you. I knew you were coming back. So good.
In terms of the message, I feel like there's going to be so many different messages from everybody. And if I just tune way in, I feel like my message is to not neglect your own creative life force. Mm-hmm. And that somehow we feel like we need to put ourselves second, like we got to get a bunch of stuff done first so that we're clear enough to help someone else first, and then us when we have time. And I think that if we could tend ourselves first a little bit, that we could have more energy to tend to others and not do it through sacrifice. Yeah. Every day I spend time tending my creativity, and I then go out and do tons of seemingly impossible things for me. But it's my own creativity that gives me the life force and the energy and the desire. And then when I start to run out of energy, then that's when I know that I need to refill my own well. And I know everyone talks about it, but I'm talking about it very specifically in regards to your own creative life force, right? And discovering what that is and practicing it and working with it and making it a source of, like, you can't miss this. Like every day I have something called cafe with my cup, my pad, my pens,
your pens,
books, we talk. It's called cafe, and it's with my creative self every single day. And so that gives me what I need And it also allows me to be honest with myself, because if we don't stop, we won't know how to be honest with ourselves. Stopping and serving your own creativity first allows you to be honest with yourself about what you need. Otherwise, we're just bypassing until we're overdone, until we're exhausted. So I'm an advocate for not exhausting yourself and choosing your creative life force. And in that, your voice awakens and you start to hear a clearer, truer voice, which is like, you got to take this day off, or you got to go take a nap, or you got to fancy hat, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how the muse comes in, is the muse encourages us to tend ourselves.
Oh, I love it. I really love it. And thank you. And what I take from today is really all that playfulness that you bring, all that remembering us to have joy in life and put intention in everything and be creative. And yeah, bring the beauty and just have fun. Put the voice out there. I love it. Shiloh, it was so delightful. I really want to thank you for this amazing conversation. And we hope to have you again and back soon. And we're going to post everything about your work, because that's what I want to do, really help you spread what you're doing, which is magical, and everybody should get in touch. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And it's been lovely. And happy International Women's Day and month.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, everybody. Blessings to each one of you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Blessings.